All right, we want to thank realvision.com for sponsoring today's episode of the Golf Podcast. Look, basically they get the smartest investors in the world and film them talking about their market insights and trade ideas. It's no wonder people have described realvision.com as TED Talks for finance. Long form, in-depth, no holds barred. Go to realvision.com/golf. Like I said, it's like TED Talks, but for finance. That's REALVISION.com/golf.
Welcome to the Golf Podcast, presented by Golficity, where we bring you the tips, instruction, and support you need to get the most out of your golf game. And now your hosts, Frank and Mike.
Hey everybody, welcome back to episode number 191 of the Golf Podcast. We're going to talk a little bit later on about a great tip that's going to help you sink a lot more putts. We're going to talk about how to get your putts started on a great line. And trust me, if you can get that putt started on a great line, your chances of making the putt go up exponentially. So many times when we miss a putt, it's because right off the bat, right off the face, we're getting in the wrong direction and we're pushing it, we're pulling it. So we've got a couple tips that we're going to talk about there that's going to do that. I also want to dive into all of the crazy, we're in the quote unquote off season, but all the crazy stuff that's been going on, the excitement around Tiger Woods, the dominance that we're seeing still with Justin Thomas, so much really, really interesting stuff. And I want to highlight a couple things from the Facebook group and even recap our interview last week, because there's a couple things, some tie overs that I even learned and applied into my own game over the weekend as I was playing. But before we do that, Mike, I want to first get your take. Are you as excited as everybody else watching Tiger posting these stinger videos?
Yeah, I love his consistency now with social media. You know, we wouldn't hear from Tiger, in between posts. It'd be like months, you know. Now he's just, more frequent. And who knows, maybe he's just learning how to use it a little better. But, I love it. It is exciting. It's exciting to see him swing. I don't know. I don't know what it means for us. Again, I always say this, but I'm not really putting too much hope into it yet, but just to see it. And like I said on a previous episode, I do think he comes back for the hero. I'm sure he's going to want to compete in that event. It's his event. And what's better than a little Bahamas golf, in December with all his buddies? Right. It's such a great event, by the way. I don't know, if you know about that one. It's a great one.
It really is. It doesn't get as much coverage as I think it should because it's a lot of fun, but yeah, man, I don't know. It's like everyone's a little gun shy to jump in there and just be really excited about it. And that's because we saw so many times like this was the comeback. And each time the comebacks kind of fall in their face, we're just thinking he's a little bit older and it's not going to happen. But yeah, I don't know. We never really saw Tiger posting much on social. And now of all things too, the stinger video.
Yeah, that's great.
It just tells you he's in tune because that's what everyone's been talking about on social and posting. And that's Tiger, who was just like, that's just his money shot, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So, but I tell you what it really kind of drove it home for me, just kind of looking at the numbers. One of our new writers on Golficity, Josh Briggs, put together an awesome piece. I was reading this the other morning over a cup of coffee. I don't know if you had a chance to check it out, but talking about post Tiger viewership issue that professional golf has had. And I guess because you and I live it, we don't kind of see it as much because we're watching the PGA Tour week in and week out no matter what. We're going to the events. But we were also, we're old enough to remember Tiger's whole run and all the craziness around that. But you start to look at the numbers and the way he broke it down. It's just unbelievable, the correlation between Tiger being in the field and television ratings. And of course, when this television ratings are up, everything's up, sponsors, everything. Sure. And it's good for all of golf. But geez, did you get a chance to look at some of these numbers?
I'm pulling this up right now as we speak.
It is wild. Even some of his lesser, or I guess triumphs, so to speak, are ridiculous. For instance, they you know how they do the ratings, right? So we're looking at this thing and, the 2017 US Open, which I thought was a terrific one. It had a rating of 3.8, television rating 3.8. Compare that 2008 US Open where Tiger, he beat Rocco Mediate in that playoff on Monday, 5.33 television rating. And he just
was 08.
And that was back in 08. And it just kind of, you go through it and it's just amazing how he's just comparing one to the other. Even when we think these are some dramatic events that are going on right now, it's just nowhere near, what the ratings that Tiger was getting. How about this one? The Open Championship, that amazing one this year, 2017 with Jordan Spieth. It was an improvement, 146% improvement over the previous year in viewership, but we're only still talking about a 3.2 rating. It's not touching the numbers that Tiger was able to do. So I
wonder if that, I'm sorry to cut you off. I wonder if that 08, because that 08 number, that was like a June 08. That was like 4 months before the economy like exploded. I wonder if things were much better back then. It wasn't just straight Tiger is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if the game kind of fell with everything else like 4 months, 5 months later after that event. But I'd like to see like a Tiger, like, when he went on his dominant streak, I think in 13, when he came back in full force, he won like 5 events. I'd like to see those stats.
Well, look at this. 1997 Masters. That's where Tiger had the 12-shot victory. Just to put in perspective, that the television rating for that one was a 15.8. It's the largest audience ever to watch the Masters, 1997. And then his U.S., just to compare him again, his U.S. Open victories, right? So Pebble Beach in 2000, he had Bethpage Black 2002. This is the run you're talking about. Torrey Pines 2008. He had Sunday audiences of 8.24, 10.75, and 7.3 million viewers. Those are 3 of the U.S. Open's 4 largest audiences from 87 to 2008. So it's just like, I think this kind of like, obviously, maybe I'm stating the obvious here, but this is why it ties in with like the incredible amount of hype that comes around every time Tiger posts a 15-second clip on social. It's because what you really realize what he had done, for the game and for viewership. I mean, look, 99% of the guys, the young guys who win now, in some interview, I'm sure you can find them crediting Tiger Woods as being a big part of the reason why they got into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. We always hear him talking about Tiger.
Right.
They still idolize the guy, and then they get to play next to him at the Ryder Cup and President's Cup. I mean, how cool is that to take it one step further? You could tell that they all grew up with watching Tiger, just like you and I. These guys are younger than us, Frank.
Right.
And we grew up watching Tiger. So it just shows you how many generations that this guy is carrying. It's amazing.
It just puts it in a lot of perspective for me because, like, for you and I, we're watching every shot of the Masters every year, but it's the Tiger brings in that other audience, like beyond just the diehard golf guys. I mean, the 2017 Masters, believe it or not, it was the lowest viewership since 1980.
Wow.
Since 1980. And that's where, we saw Sergio finally get his green jacket. But it's just, it's tough because you're seeing now the coverage is getting so amazing. And I wonder, I don't know. So I can't give you this exactly. I don't know if this goes into the numbers and I don't know how the television ratings work, but a lot of people are watching these on their apps now. And like the Masters app, I know a lot of people like me will set up the iPad at work and watch it. I don't know. I know I have to kind of log in sometimes to watch it on some of these, like through my cable provider. So I don't know if it counts. I mean, I just feel like on the surface, you think the coverage has gotten so great and there's so many ways to watch it. You can even live stream most of the stuff, you see on Twitter and everywhere else. There just seems like there's so many different channels for us to see this programming. It seems like viewership being down is something that it's hard to imagine.
I mean, I get most of my fill from like Instagram. I mean, how many times Golficity just posted the other day. I mean, first of all, how ridiculous was Justin Thomas's par 5 that he played?
Come on, right?
So, before we just tell that quick story, I mean, that I see clips like that all day long of things that are happening on tour. I feel like I'm watching it. Yeah. I feel like I got everything I need to get out of like the Thursday round, right off the social media post. But back to that shot, what was that whole plan about? 568, 548 or something?
That was wild. Yeah, it's a par 5. I mean, obviously Justin Thomas returned to dominance in the CJ Cup after a little bit of what we would say is a disappointing CIMB Classic, him being the defending 2-time champ there and how hot his game was. But I think there's a little bit of fatigue there too. He even said afterwards he's just looking forward to the off season. I was hoping to see him play this week in the WGC HSBC Champions, but I think he just needs some time off. But anyway, par 5, 568. Right. His second shot, he was 142 in. He had a pitching wedge to about 3 feet from the hole for an eagle.
Wow.
But that round, I mean, when we teed off, I played over the weekend. I played Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and everybody was out there talking about it. I mean, he shot, I think, what did he shoot? A 29 on the front with a bogey on the first. He had two eagles, and the rest, I think, all birdies. It was ridiculous. But I mean, do the math. That's a 400 and whatever it is, 420 plus yard drive.
And here's a guy with dominance. Look at what you just said as far as 2 eagles. You only get those eagles with your distance. I mean, I got to assume he's hitting those par 5s and 2 on a short course. So, I mean, I look at my game from on a Friday, and the reason why I was so dominant in our little match that we had is because I was playing with a bunch of guys in their 50s and 60s, and I'm not knocking their age, but they can't get through the ball like I can. I can't tell you how many times I'm driver, wedge, similar to that Justin Thomas drive on almost everything. And I feel like I have such a great advantage. And I'm saying to myself, wow, if I can only hone in this part of my game from wedge in, I would be lights out in this game. I would be absolutely lights out, but I just can't. But it goes back to that's why he's so dominant on tours, because of his distance. Not to mention he's insanely great around the green. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's an all around fantastic player. But when you get that distance, especially for us amateurs, if you make it a priority this offseason, try to get, I know it's easier said than done, try to get 20, 30 yards off the tee. It's going to do wonders for sure.
No doubt. And that's where when you start to really hone your game in, everybody looks for that little bit more distance because they want to be able to hit those shorter irons in. But the other side of that argument is, like you said, I mean, you just said it. If you could just learn to score from 100 in, it's like we talked about last week with Will Robbins, and he's talking about the scoring method and learning how to score. I mean, how many times for that dominance of the distance, how many times have you seen the counterpoint where these older guys who don't have the length anymore go out and beat us because even though they're taking 3 shots into a par 5 where maybe we're trying to get there in 2, their third shot is always on point. These guys are just like, they've just got that experience under their belt and they're just awesome from 100 yards in. And that's where it's like, sure, you going to kind of catch lightning in a bottle sometimes and hit that 3-iron into a par 5 and get it somewhere tight. Yeah. But there's also a chance you're still going to be like a 30, 40 yards out with some sort of wedge flop shot, where in reality you could hit a shorter shot and then hit a wedge in. But with Justin Thomas, I mean, and look, we even see that on the PGA Tour. You see the difference of the big distance game. And we saw it go head to head when you had, Dustin Johnson and Jordan Spieth in that playoff. But again, that's where distance did win out. But Jordan Spieth on a week-to-week basis is hanging with these guys and beating these guys, and he's not playing a distance game. Relative to us, he is.
You're right,
but
of
not
course.
Relative to those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really about just being in your game wherever your game is. I think when you start to see these guys slump, it's because for some reason they get out of their game, out of their style. And I think right now, JT is just firing on all cylinders. He's just playing to his game. He's playing to his style. He's just letting it fly and he's making it work.
How many does he win this year? Call it right now. He already has 1.
So you're counting this one?
I'm counting
the
the
wraparound
1
season.
I had 5 last year.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see out of Justin Thomas is probably, I think you'll see like 2 wins. I think you'll see him playing at East Lake, but I think you're going to see somewhere more like a 10 to 12 place finish in the FedEx Cup. And I don't know if you'll see him win a major next year.
Wow.
And the only reason I say that, is because I haven't seen anyone really since Tiger be able to keep it up for that long. Mm-hmm. I mean, every single guy that I can think of right now, we can kind of make a point that they've gone through maybe not as dramatic because JT's been on fire. I can't take a thing away from the guy, but all these different guys have been on streaks that have lasted about this long. It's like this 6 to 8 month streak where they're just dominating, and we're just thinking, forget about it. No one's going to catch them.
Yeah,
I remember, Jason Day had that big time.
Speed 2015, the year of Spieth.
And it's just like even Rory, and now we see kind of Rory maybe had it the longest, but then we've seen him kind of floundering since then. It's just like it's hard to keep up that momentum for so long, and B, it's hard to keep the pack at bay because there's so much talent in the PGA Tour right now. There's always that next guy who it seems like he's ready to catch fire. And then you got to beat him. I think what we'll see is somebody else catch fire. Also, I mean, even any time knocking at the door is Dustin Johnson. He can go on another tear. We've seen him go on these mini tears. I could see him going on a big tear. I could see him, bringing home a FedEx Cup title for sure. Because just the way his game is suited, if he stays healthy and he plays enough tournaments this year, I could see him putting enough wins together to make it where he gives himself in contention. But, again, that prediction is not to take anything. 3 wins on a PGA Tour season is still an incredible season for anybody. Right. So it's just like, I'm not taking anything away from him. What I'm trying to show is that there's just so much pressure to stay on top. It's so hard to do.
Yeah. Let's just hope JT doesn't hear this episode.
Or he can come on and he can challenge me.
He could come on and challenge it.
Get on the show, JT, and tell me how you're going to do better than that. Let's
exactly.
See.
Prove
I
us
hope
wrong.
He does. I'm just saying it's very hard to.
I know. And I'm going to say he wins another 5. I'm going to say he keeps going. I'm going to say he wins another 5.
So that's what would that be? That would be 11 wins in 2 seasons.
What did he win 5 last year? Or 6?
Was it? Okay, so 5 more.
So 5 total. It'll be back-to-back
10.
5-win seasons. No majors, but I say he has 5 wins because there are a lot of events he plays in that he could certainly dominate the field. So we'll see what happens.
Right, and the other side of it, as long as he doesn't get burned out. He played a lot of events last season. Sometimes when you see these guys on top, they kind of back it off a little bit.
And sometimes cash can make you lazy.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it really is true with those guys. They still grind day in and day out.
They do. I think these guys, when you get to that level, it gets to a certain point, the cash, it's like, okay, what? Throw another $1 million or 2 in the bank.
We want first in the world. That's what we want.
Yeah, that's what they want. Really, they want that first. They want those types of things. They're competitors. That's why they're out there.
What do you think we're ranked in the world if we had to take a guess? I would love for there to be a website for every golfer who's ever has a gin. Yeah. And let's just say, what rank are you? I'd be like, I moved up to, $12,480,000. My world ranking is worthless. I'll tell you that right now.
Such a sad number.
Very sad.
It would be such a sad number. I wouldn't want to even know.
Yeah, no, let's not. Let's go on. Let's do a quick word from our sponsor, Frank, and let's dive into tonight's topic. All right?
Sounds good. All right, guys, once again, I want to talk about realvision.com. You heard me mention them at the top of the show, but what is realvision.com? Here's how one subscriber summed it up. He said, watching Real Vision is the closest you can get to stalking the legends of finance. The guys at realvision.com fly all over the world tracking down the big guns of finance and get them to share their ideas about markets, investment strategies, trade ideas, you name it. And when I say legends of finance, look, they mean it. RealVision.com films people like Kyle Bass, Jim Gant, John Burbank, Russell Clark, Mark Yesko. The names go on and on and on. If you want to know what the cleverest people in finance are thinking right now, go to realvision.com/golf. Like I said, it's like stalking the legends of finance. That's RealVision.com/golf. All right. So what we're going to talk about is starting your putts off on a great line. And then this is something that I've been working on a little bit. Actually, I really kind of opened my eyes. What you were saying earlier too is about that scoring from 100 yards in. I was playing over the weekend again. I'm playing this new father golf type of thing with my now 4-month-old at home and the 3-year-old, and they've both been sick with colds. So I don't play ever, but when I do, I got these funny rounds that I play now. I'm so lucky to have the golf course in basically my backyard that it's so close to home. What I do is I just tee off first thing in the morning, get as many holes in as I can before they all wake up and the house is chaos. And then I just cut and run. So,
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to, like I said, it's the weekends. They're crazy. I can't leave it all on my wife. So if you saw some of my rounds, like on Arcos lately, they're like 9 holes, 12 holes.
11 holes, yeah.
You know, it's like you just see where I end and then I'm off the course. But anyway, I'm just doing it just to keep the game loose and keep playing. But in the back of my mind, you always have like what we talked about in the previous episode. And ringing in my head was our interview with Will Robbins, which, by the way, if you didn't have a chance to check it out, go back and listen to episode 190 because a truly crazy, inspiring story with him surviving the tsunami and all that stuff. But I won't recap that, but his scoring method and just talking about learning how to score. So I was focusing more and more from that 100 yards in and just realizing how many shots I just waste from that distance, you know, and it's just like you spend so much time working on your swing. And this is something we're going to talk about in a couple episodes coming up. We're going to talk about consistency again, because it's a big thing that comes up very often. And one big thing is saying that most of us can make a good swing. Our problem is that we just can't do it consistently. So the good swing is in there, but yet we spend so much time working on the swing, you know, week in and week out, and we're not really working on scoring. I think the lower hanging fruit, and I think something that Will was trying to prove and something that you could get out of his program, the scoring method, which is just getting this idea of saying, okay, work with where you're at, you know, because where you're at is already good enough that you could be scoring a little better with it if you just play a little smarter. But I think a big part of that is, you know, obviously on the green. If there's going to be anywhere that you're going to pick up the most strokes, but it might be like the least sexy part of your game, so to speak, it's going to be, you know, on the green. Everyone wants to say that, you know, they picked up a couple strokes by, as you said, getting 20 more yards off the tee. I mean, that's just like, forget about it. Everybody's so happy about that. But you can pick up those strokes, I think, arguably even faster by just rolling in more putts. I think that's something that's just kind of not overlooked. And the reason why I could say that it's definitively seems overlooked is just compare the amount of time, just drive past any practice facility or driving range or golf course and see how many people are on the driving range versus how many people are putting in actual practice on the putting green. It's just like, we don't see it. We don't see people putting work in. Sure, you get out there and you warm up a little bit, and that's another thing that we're going to touch on soon. There's a big difference between, you know, warming up and practicing, and they each have their own spot. But you can get better at putting. And when you do, you can really see some improvement. We even see it on the PGA Tour. When these guys go on tears, it's because usually their flat iron is hot. Right. I mean, you do fantasy all the time. What are you looking for? What's one big thing you're looking for? How hot their putter
strokes
is.
gained putting. Absolutely.
Exactly.
You know, the thing with me, I played Baltusrol on Thursday and I could not putt to save my life. I mean, I'm telling you.
How were the greens, by the way?
They were so incredibly fast. The course was immaculate. I mean, the weather here has been so great. And, you know, the guy would be like, this is where I want your ball to end, the caddy. This is where I want it to end. And I'm like, I just kept saying, are you sure? I mean, it's like a tap. He's like, trust me. I'm like, all right, I'm going to trust. And I would tap the ball, what I thought was a tap, and I would blow it 5-6 feet past the hole. I made so many 3-putts. That round was one of the rounds where like I just stopped keeping score after the 15th hole. You know, one of those? Yeah. Where at that point, like it's gotten away from me. Right. you know, I was onto something good, and then it just got away from me. But then I came back the very next day on more reasonable greens, and sure enough, man, you know, everything was rolling in, and putting was the reason why we won our match and we won the trophy, because I was nailing putts. I don't know what it was, but I did put more emphasis on putting practice before the Friday round. I did not at Baltusrol at all. I just took those for granted, really. Yeah. So maybe that tells me that, you know, the putting was key that day. And that's the problem, is it's so easy to do. Right. So anyway, yeah, we see that ebb and flow where it's like, even when we do have the time to commit to practicing putting, we get a little bit better, and then it kind of, you know, ebbs and flows when we don't get a chance to do it as much. So, you know, we say, like, if you're going to practice, make sure it's focused practice. So I want to cover a couple things like that. But talking about getting that putt started on a good line, one big thing, and this is without a doubt unquestionable, even if you've made a great read,
you've got a good speed, all those types of things. If you end up just in execution, we always talk about plan and execution. If you've got a great plan for a putt and then in execution, it falls apart because you miss hitting the line that you picked, your read is just going to be wasted. You might as well throw it out the window. All that work goes into reading the green is just gone. So starting it and that execution of making sure that putt is rolling on your intended line. It's picking that intended line and secondly, rolling it on it. It can be so important. And then this is something that good news is you can actually practice this in your free time. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this where you can just practice it at home. You can practice it on a carpet. It's just getting used to that putting stroke and making sure the ball is rolling on that line. And then when you get out there on the course, a lot of it is visualization. I always, one of the last things I do as part of my pre-putting routine is, I look down, I kind of visualize the line that I want to take towards the hole based on my read. And then I'll go from the cup and I'll use my eyes to go all the way back to the ball and just draw this line. And then as part of that, just maybe 12 to 24 inches out, I'll pick a spot. And that becomes kind of my starting line. It's just rolling it down that 1 to 2 feet line to get started. Beyond that, the line is contingent upon the read. And then so is the speed. So now it's just hitting at the right speed down that line and the rest should take care of itself. So that's important. But in order to do it, you really gotta give yourself a chance. And the way to do this is to make sure that putter face is aimed properly down that line at address. And this is something you can't really take it for granted. You'd be surprised how many times people are misaligned. I would make the argument that this happens across the board for almost all shots because a lot of people are we went over a whole episode about alignment with anywhere from driver through iron shots. But making sure your alignment's right is going to really dramatically improve your chances of hitting the ball the where you want it to be. I think it was, I heard just recently Butch Harmon, I think it was, who had a quote and he said, basically, if you take your stance and then take your aim, you're dead. It should be always the other way. Take your aim and then take your stance to adjust it. And take your stance that it, becomes, contingent upon that aim. And that's something that I've been trying to do even with my iron shots. I still pick my line. I lay my club face down, exactly perpendicular to that line. And then I take my stance around it. But this is a similar type of thing that you want to do. And the biggest tip, now in the article, which I'll link to in the show notes, the article we talk about using a string in order to kind of simulate a line and then rolling it down that line. That's an okay drill. My favorite drill and what's helped me the most is the yardstick drill, which I've mentioned briefly here before, but it's so cheap. It's like the cheapest putting aid you're ever going to get. Just go down to Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever, and pick up one of those wood rulers, like ideally a yardstick, something that's about 3 feet long. And then ideally maybe 2 inches wide, wide enough that the ball will fit on it. And then just practice in your bedroom.
Just putting down the stick.
Yeah, just putting down that stick and making sure to roll it all the way so it comes off the end of the other end. And that's actually a tip. I don't even remember where I heard it, but I know there was a college team that had a lot of success doing it. And the coach would make the entire team do like about 100 of those a day. And it only counted if it rolled all the way down the stick and off the other side. And it's tricky, but it will really train you on making sure that putter face is perfectly square to that ball, because any little bit of variation, it's going to roll off one side of the stick or the other. But then if you can do that, you can actually start to visualize that stick when you're out there. So you make your read and then you look at, you see where that line and draw that line back with your eyes and then just visualize the stick going right down that read. And just all you're thinking about now, you don't have to think about the 12 feet to the hole. Just think about your speed and those first 3 feet. Roll it down that stick and let the read you made do the rest. But at least the execution is in the bag. You did it.
I like that. Mm-hmm.
Love that tip. And if anything has helped my putting game over the last 2 years, it's been that. That's been a big one. Another big thing when it comes to speed and also comes to getting it on that right line, we've talked about this before, controlling the length of your backstroke on putting. You don't want to make a super short stroke. If you notice yourself kind of punching at it or pushing the ball because you don't have enough of a backstroke to get the speed you need, then you know you're in trouble. But if you look at the majority of amateur golfers who struggle with putting, it's usually because they're making too long of a backstroke. Especially if you're really struggling hitting that target line, that could be it. So if you try to tighten things up a little bit more, you'll probably see some more improvement in your overall accuracy. And you'll see, you can still control your speed. You can still control your distances. But you got to just don't put extra into your backswing, because it's just more room for error. So again, it's that fine line. It's hard to do here without physically demonstrating it, but too short and you feel like you're punching it and slapping at it. Too long and you're starting to you do a little bit too much variation. So that's a tough one.
I usually spread my legs further apart if it's a longer putt, which will tell me to bring the putter back further towards the back leg. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a little, if it's a short putt, my legs will be just closer because the backstroke's shorter. I will challenge my backstroke to reach my right leg, because I'm a righty, my right foot, and then come through, which is kind of like how far back I should bring it. I mean, that's just the drill that I practice on the green, and I've determined that it works, you know, so it's just something that I do. I wanted to share.
I like that. And I've heard people talk about that before, where you vary your stance a little bit, because of the fact, and that you can serve as that visual aid. Plus, then immediate feedback is if you're starting to come way back past your foot, you're taking too long of a backstroke. For me personally, it doesn't work because I like to take out as much variation as I can. I like to just make sure my stance, everything is exactly the same. But I can definitely agree that can be a great visual aid, especially you can't argue with it working. If it's working, then without a doubt.
Absolutely.
So it's one of those things, experiment, listeners out there, I would encourage them to try different things and see. But regardless of whatever stance you take, our next point kind of leads right into it, is making sure you stand perfectly still. This is something you and I both were doing wrong. And, we learned this little tip when we were down at that 18 birdies event, where you ended up sinking that $18,000 putt to send us to Bay Hill. Absolutely. But remember what he said, both of us, we were just too much motion in the low body. And that can do the same type of thing. And he kind of like showed it with a kind of a simplified gate drill. Just showed me how by shifting my low body, I was kind of pulling the club in, and then ended up that the toe of the putter would kind of come towards me and come across the ball. So I was ending up pulling too many shots to the left, too many putts to the left. By staying still, you were able to just kind of keep that body motion where it's just that upper body pendulum, and you can keep the putter going, squarely down the target line, longer. A great drill for it is the gate drill. Just, set up a tee on either side of your putter and putt through there and make sure you're just coming right through it. But the visualization that I worked, I like to tell you guys what I'm doing, because maybe someone else will attach to it and do a similar thing, but don't be afraid to tweak it and use whatever visualization works for you. But the one that works for me is just visualizing that from my waist down when I'm about to putt is just in concrete. It is immobile, can't move it at all. And I've heard other people say like a statue, or thinking that you're like a statue, whatever it may be. Keep it there. Some other people like to just think about the position of your kneecaps, focusing on just keeping your kneecaps still, because if both kneecaps hold their position, the rest of your body is also going to most likely your low body is going to be in its same spot. So that's an important one, but take that variation out. That little bit of twist and movement in the low body can cause a lot of variation in the club face. So that's an important one.
Yeah, makes sense.
And the very last thing is just get out there and hit a lot of short putts. I think part of this is, like I said, that drill that you can do even at home, where it's just like using that yardstick, or even modify it. I start making some putts, put like a coffee mug 6 feet out with a 3-foot yardstick, and practice rolling it down the stick and then into the cup. But no matter what, that's where the more you practice, the more you're going to build confidence in it. We've talked about it before. If you've got confidence that you're putting that ball, on the right line and rolling on the right line going down, you're going to execute better. Because as soon as you start to lose that confidence, as soon as you start to second guess yourself, you get those jitters, whatever you want to call them, that's where you're going to start to screw this up, for lack of a better word, because you're going to end up being more tense in the arms and wrists. You're going to be kind of smacking at the ball a little bit. You're going to be jittery and pushing and pulling it. So confidence is a real key. Anybody can put this on paper and realize, okay, that's how it's done, so to speak. But actually executing it takes just kind of grinding it in, just getting out there and doing it. And that's why it's so important to put that focused practice time. If it can't be on the putting surface, if you can't find maybe a half hour once a week to get out there and just putt around for a little while practicing. And, aside from quickly warming up before you hit the first tee, like actually focused practice, then try to work it in at home, because this is the good benefit of this. Is not like you're taking full cuts with a 3-iron. You can do this in your house.
Exactly.
You can do it in different places. Just get that motion down.
I want to jump in right there because I recently was sent one of these Chippo golf sets from the guys over at Chippo.
Yeah, those things look cool.
It's kind of like cornhole for golf, but which is chipping and the mats that come with it. Speaking of practicing at home, I've been playing on this thing because it's downstairs in the family area where we hang out every night. I'll just chip balls off the mat, and I go back as far as 15 yards. 10 yard shots, really long across the whole basement. And let me tell you something, Frank. My chipping game is actually getting a lot better. And it's shocking. It just tells me there's no excuse for this off season to practice your putting and your stroke on a carpet in your house. Like you're saying, use the ruler, use the carpet. If you have a little piece of felt green, one of those cheap ones you get on Amazon for $30 and put it down in a room, do it just to practice the putting stroke. You don't have to go anywhere for this. That's the best part. Now I don't have to go anywhere for putting. I don't have to go anywhere for chipping. Unfortunately, I don't have a place where I could take full swings here in the house, and I probably won't. But still, it's okay because I think that short game's crucial. And I was lighting it up on Friday around the greens. Yeah. I can miss more greens on my approach shots because I know I'm going to be deadly. I'm putting the ball within 4 feet, 3 feet, 2 feet. And sure enough, the putts are going to drop.
Yeah, so you get more confidence in it. I had a similar thing when I worked on my chipping. I got more aggressive going into greens because the fact that I knew I had that confidence that I could rely on it, and you're not playing with that fear. You're playing with more aggression. So really cool stuff. Oh, Mike, before we wrap it up, it's actually kind of funny. As I'm sitting here recording this, I just had my email pop up. A couple of guys in the podcast group on Facebook had asked last week. They said they wanted to try out, after hearing our interview with Will Robbins, they wanted to try out the scoring method, which is his online training, which he's had so much success with in person. Now he's starting to transition it to some online training for people all over the world to be able to do it. Anyway, couple guys in the group were asking, they wanted to try it, but they wanted to see, if there was any type of benefit or a coupon or something like that. So I reached out to Will. I reached out to his team. And they were gracious enough. I just got the email this second to give us a discount code. So, they just told me you can use code Golficity, GOLFICITY, and get $20 off the program. So I'll throw that in the Facebook group too, so everyone has it. But I wanted to just announce it here as it came in. So that's a really cool thing. And guys, don't be afraid to ask that. We're always here. It just might be that we didn't get a chance or we didn't think of it. If you guys think there's something you want to try, you want to see if we can throw the podcast weight around and get you guys a discount or something, we'll try to do it. I mean, it can't hurt to ask. It can't hurt.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Why not?
Okay, Mike, do you have anything else before we wrap it up this week?
I have nothing else, man. I'm just going to try to wrap up this week. I'm on daddy duty this week, staying home with the little one. You're dealing with double kids, got ear infections. I mean, we're going through crazy stuff, but you know what? We're still committed to the show. How great is that?
Man. That's it. You're right. I was home from work all day the other day. Yep. My wife has no time off left because she was out on maternity leave, and then both the kids were sick, and it's just... Our conference calls prepping for these shows are hilarious because it's like how many kids are screaming in the background just to get through it.
I know. It's crazy.
Too funny. All right. So that's everything we have. Like I said, you can get to the show notes by going to golficity.com/episode 191, and we'll see everybody again next week.